was like, no, 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 you didn't enter a valid coupon code. And so it turns out what happened is that inside of JavaScript, they had a big list of MD5 hashes. Now, what they were doing is they were taking, oh no, it gets worse. So whatever you typed in as your coupon code, maybe I typed in, you know, Billy. So I typed in Billy. It took whatever you typed in, uppercased it, removed everything that wasn't letters or numbers, MD5'd it, and then compared it with the list it had. So what this means is not only do I have a list of all known hashes, but I know how they constructed the input. So basically this hacker went ahead and said, okay, I'm going to take John the Ripper, I'm going to tell it to generate all English words that are only uppercase and go ahead and add letters, so they drastically reduce the key space, the number of things I got to try, generate and see basically, who here knows hashing, what hash functions are? Some people don't, so I have to ask. Hashing is like having hamburger meat and trying to figure out what the cow looked like. You can't, but what you do, you have a lot of farm animals, you can throw them all through the grinder and see what looks most like hamburger meat. The thing that looks like hamburger meat was probably a cow. So the same thing, he went ahead and said, I'm going to take an English dictionary, I'm going to run it through this hashing function, and anything that matches, I can't go backwards, but because I went forwards, I know what that word was. And so within about 5 seconds, he cracked all of them. And sure enough, there was a lovely thing called Platinum Pass, which would give you a Platinum Pass to Macworld free of charge. A Platinum Pass to Macworld costs you about $1,900. So he cracked this, 2008, same thing, he did it again. So I really, well actually they're not doing Macworld this year with Steve Jobs, so that's, I guess actually I won't be able to do this. Damn, okay.
Because he was losing money.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So, needless to say, I thought this story was funny as hell. Until my friend in late 2007, Vinny, emailed me. So there's a good friend of mine, a guy named Vinny Liu. He runs a consulting company called Stack and Liu. So if you ever need code review or something, great guy. So this was we got bought by HP in spring of 2007. So I've been an employee of HP now for a little while. Though I'm sure with all this drinking, they're really not going to want me to admit that.
What's going on the web tomorrow?
That's right. So
Edit that out to say compact.
Compact, yes. Well, actually, deck if you really want to go back. So, Vinny sends me this email and goes, I don't know who to send this to, but we had a user conference every year. And he said, look, I went to the user conference and to register because Vinny was going to be one of our speakers to talk about automated code review. And so it was like, you know, I noticed the application was responding way too fast to my discount code. And I'm like, uh-oh, this sounds familiar. So he goes ahead, he opens up the JavaScript code, he's like, the check occurs in JavaScript. Some decoding, but trivial. Might be some app logic that I'm missing that could prevent it. I didn't bother to check. Hope all is well. Cheers, Vinny. And so, now you'll notice this was at 3:30 at night. And so, I went, I started looking, and sure enough, in the JavaScript code, I saw something that said, discount code 0, discount code, discount. So it's like the code, the name, the amount, the code, the name, the amount. So ignoring the amount and the obvious client-side pricing problem there, I'm like, oh no. First of all, you'll notice that the discount code here looks a lot like the discount code here, which looks a lot like the discount code. In fact, these guys only differ by a single character. Now, anybody who does anything with cryptography will tell you that cryptography is supposed to be random. So if I give you the word cat, it should encrypt to some crazy gibble of numbers. And if I give you the word hat, the gibble of numbers that come out should look nothing like cat. They should be completely different. The fact that these are so similar and there are patterns indicates a problem. This is bad cryptography. So I'm like, oh man, this isn't good. Oh fuck. I went through and I found a function inside the JavaScript that was called crypt that would take in a string and basically shift around the ASCII characters.
Oh, that's hardcore.
Which means that this guy and this guy, the code is probably the same with just one letter being different, and that's why there's a pattern. So I very quickly wrote it got worse because it was reversible. So I very quickly wrote something that dumped out all the promo codes. So, and then I basically sent a screenshot, which ended with fire our external web developers now. I don't know if y'all can see that, exclamation point, exclamation point. Now, here's a problem, is that, so we set up this website for you to basically see who the speakers were, you know, all this stuff, you know, I was there, Rob was there, and then we determined, wait a minute, we never wrote the code that actually did the checkout process. So, this isn't our code. It turns out the conference provider used this code for everyone. So they basically, you could say, all right, here's the conference I'm doing, but to register and do all the shopping cart stuff, it used the same code. Well, needless to say, we immediately started searching this conference page to find out what other conferences they hosted. It turns out that they were hosting the, if everybody ever goes out to Vegas, sometimes either DEF CON or Black Hat overlaps with the Adult Film Festival conference that goes on. The Adult Film Festival conference was using these guys as their conference provider. So we run through, we're like, what discounts are they using? Well, you'll notice that we're using things like bronze, silver, gold. I'm going to blush if I start repeating what some of the coupon codes were. I had to go and ask, Strick and I have a good friend named Virgil, and I had to ask Virgil, I'm like, Virgil, what is a jelly donut? Because I know what a jelly donut is, but I have a feeling it is not what they are thinking of. So, needless to say, it turns out they use this for everybody, so we contacted them. Now, Flash games. Now, this is another good story about the stupid stuff people are now putting in the client, and they're going to continue to put in the client because we're moving towards this world where you're occasionally connected. I can use this app whether I'm on a plane or whether I'm connected on, you know, my iPhone. This fact that more and more people are putting stupid stuff into the client, I can see the client-side code. Just like I saw the coupon codes, this one was pretty interesting too. I like to call this story Billy Wins a Cheeseburger. And you'll see why in a moment. So we were playing this, there was a restaurant, very famous restaurant. You all have gone there. It's got freaky clowns. Anyway, so they every year do a game after a very famous board game where you buy and sell property. And potentially some utilities, but the utilities don't pay out as well as the railroads. So they did this thing, so you could play in the store and win Ferraris and stuff, or you could actually play online in this Flash version, and if you won, it would give you coupons for free food. All right, sexy, awesome. I'm all about free stuff. So we went ahead, we started playing this game, and we realized that the only time this Flash thing running in the browser actually sent a message to the web server was when you won. And we noticed that even if you won the same prize, it sent a different message. We're like, okay, this is kind of weird. So the first thing we did is try to replay the message, but it didn't work. So we're like, oh man, that really sucks. So the next thing we did is said, well, let's decompile the Flash object. Now I'll show you this in a second, actually, with a tool that may or may not be released for free by the end of the month, that you all will see. So we decompiled this thing, and we very quickly realized what the app was doing. It was taking your email address, the prize you won, and the time date stamp, encrypting that and sending it to the web server. This is why if I won the same prize twice, it changed, because the time date stamp was different. And what they were doing is this way, if I won at noon on Friday, if I tried to replay the message 5 minutes later, it would say, no, wait a minute. This message, that you should have won this 5 minutes ago. No way your clock is that out of sync. No, and it would deny you. So we very quickly wrote a brand new game. Oh, what's in that? Am I going to want to drink that?
It's going to be vodka and almost Red Bull. Oh my God, that's green. Was it looking at the client?
Yes. So if they allow for clock skew, you could replay something within an hour. That was not a lot of, oh my Lord.
It's potent.
I have a feeling this story is going to end with, and that's how I got hepatitis.
A or B?
So, and it wasn't from Al this time. That's another story. So we decided to go ahead and write a new game, and this game was going to be called Billy Wins a Cheeseburger, because by decompiling the game where you win a lot of property, what was inside of that was the encryption key. We had the encryption key, and we had the logic to make the message that it got sent to say, look, Billy just won a cheeseburger or some fries or whatever. So we went ahead and built a new Flash game, and all it had was a big red button. And you pushed it, and you won. You pushed it again, and you won. It's the greatest game ever. Now, of course, we've got, Rob and I have a coworker we work with, a gal named Projecta. Actually, at one point in time, our research team was half female, Indian, and vegetarian. It's not that way anymore. We've hired more folks, but we had two fantastic ladies. Well, almost unheard of, I know. So, anyway, for Projecta, we decided to have a revision 2 of Billy Wins a Cheeseburger, which would have a drop down of what you would win, because she had no interest in having hamburgers. So, and also Projecta's great, because we used to have on Fridays, we would do like a Friday lunch, and basically all the managers, because I run the research group, it would round robin between who had to go ahead and find a vendor for lunch. And it got to me, and Projecta's like, Billy, you got to get something. Everybody else does barbecue and they bring salad, so the vegetarians have something. She's like, salad is not something you can eat every day. She's like, salad is not an acceptable food. So that's the thing I learned, yeah. Which unfortunately is the only thing you could get from this restaurant that had the property game, but that was vegetarian. I mean, I'm sure other stuff was vegetarian, but I mean, yeah, you don't want to eat that. So let me give you another real-life example. I blurred this, but we had another guy we work with named Ray Kelly, who, I don't know who's looking for a job, but there's a company here local in Atlanta called PureWire, which does web security kind of in the cloud. Really cool company, started by a bunch of the Cypher Trust guys. So I highly suggest looking at it. We since being bought by HP, has actually lost a lot of our really cool, smart people to HP, or excuse me, to PureWire, which shows you I'm obviously not very smart or bright, because I'm still at HP, but Ray went to PureWire. Now, Ray liked to play a lot of poker, and the great thing was Ray sucked at poker. So he wanted to try stuff online. So there was this one free online poker place, and just on a whim, to Rob's presentation earlier, he was just at this website and typed admin. He was at site.com, whatever, typed in admin, got this page, and we're like, oh, that's kind of sexy. Well, we noticed when we looked at the source of the page that the admin thing was actually a Swift file. And we're like, wait a minute, this thing right here, it says username and password and login, that's not HTML, it's a Swift file, it's a Flash application. So we went ahead and visited it directly, and sure enough, it took up the whole screen, just like a Flash app would. So we used elite hacking tool called wget. I had to explain this afterward. Wget is essentially, you say, here's a URL, whatever's there, just download and save it. And the reason we use wget is sometimes browsers, if you go File, Save As, if it's something that's not HTML, they kind of gum it up. Most of these bugs are fixed, but we wanted to make sure we actually got the Flash application. Now, we used a lovely little tool called Flare. Flare is an open source decompiler for Flash. Now, it only works on Flash 8 and below. We'll talk about why that's important in a moment. But I love it. You just right-click and say decompile. Now, the source code, what this app was actually doing, this simply said, look, if they press the enter button, if the username field says nlop and the password says hit it, go ahead and send them to adminhome.shtml. So they're actually checking the credentials at the client. Number one rule of web security is you cannot trust the client. So needless to say, not only were they checking the username and password, they actually did. Now here's the lovely thing. This is not an isolated incident. We went ahead, did a search. Here's some other Flash code we decompiled. On release or enter if username is this and password is secure. I love the way their password is secure. That's awesome. User 3 and password 3. We actually went ahead. This is not, so I don't know how well you can see this, but login, password equals camps. These are multiple websites we visited that had this problem. We did a real quick Google search. So if you type into Google search, give me file type equals SWF, which are Flash apps, and in the URL is login or secure or admin, you end up getting only about 200 or so results. Well, it turned out of those 150 results, 23 of them had login credentials hard-coded. So, I mean, this is a very, just one particular sample, but you're looking at, I've just been drinking rum and whatever this green hepatitis stuff is, but that's at least, it's more than 10%, less than 20%. Let's call it 15%. 15% of all Flash apps related to logins or secure or admin have usernames and passwords hard-coded inside of them. This is why we call this the gallery of fail. How could you make such a silly mistake? But people do. You know, who needs credentials? We'll just go ahead and stick it in right here. Now, something I see here, a theme people tell me is that, but you can't look at my program code. Well, yes, I can. So, I know I've given part of this thing before, but I just thought I'd show it. I've actually given this to Press Mike. So, if you're doing with the JavaScript app, this is actually the code from Google Finance. So this is actually the JavaScript code. I like to think I'm a pretty smart guy, and I have no idea what this does. I mean, my brain, var lc equals false function id a kc a0 function. I mean, you can't read that crap. It's obfuscated. They've reduced the variable names. How do you read it? Well, we wrote a fun little program that actually I ended up giving to Press Mike, where I'm going to go ahead and let me put it out this way. That takes all of that, and here's the thing. You can't encrypt this stuff. You can't hide it, because at the end of the day, the browser needs to execute it. So you can make it hard for a human to read, but you can't prevent the machine from reading it. Otherwise, it won't execute. Well, here's the thing. I can write a program that acts like a machine, that executes and understands it, and then gives that to the human user in a way they can understand. So let's analyze this code. It's going to take a moment because it's 300K of encrypted stuff. And sure enough, we come right back, and it's nice and easy to see and read. It's a lot easier I can see over here what functions are actually being accessed. So I'll scroll up right here. So we see things like last child, last index of lavender blush. They have a function called lavender blush. That's a... Wow, lemon saffron? These sounds like really bad saffron. Oh, saffron. These sound like bad bridesmaids dresses. Probably. So yeah, or stripper names. Have you all ever played the stripper name or My Little Pony name? Like Ebony Jasmine? Is that a stripper name or a My Little Pony name? It's kind of hard to tell. So that's if you have JavaScript, right? What about Flash? We talked about decompiling Flash. Well, again, you know, let's say somebody wrote a program that's a lot more professional looking than that JavaScript program. Wait, did it execute? Here we go. Click, click. All right, so this is a lovely program we use internally inside of HP's Web Security Research Group called SwiftScan. I can go ahead and pretty much point it at things that I want. So let's go ahead, open this guy up. And it goes ahead, works with all versions of ActionScript. So ActionScript is what you write Flash in. So this basically decompiled the Flash object. Here are all the namespaces. I'll go ahead and put that one up. They're using something called JumpI, which is a component. Here's the actual decompiled source code. Now that's kind of handy, but what happens if we actually automatically analyzed it for vulnerabilities for you? Oh, well, that's kind of sexy. Huh, tell me more about this. All right, well, you're using the protect tag. This Flash application uses the protect tag. The protect tag was a very early security mechanism to prevent people from accessing the contents of your Flash apps. However, external tools, such as this tool, can simply disregard the security mechanism. You should remove the protect tag from your app as it serves no purpose. You know, they've got some... exactly. That's basically a flag that says, please don't touch me. So here we see that it highlighted some nice trace debugging information, so it gives me an idea about what's going on inside. I'll go ahead and throw open. This is a purely fake one that we created. Where did I put it? No, it was... All right, well, I'll show you another one we've got. Now, I'm absolutely not telling you that this is going to be released by March 23rd or anything, but I'm just saying, if this was released, wouldn't that be pretty cool? All right, so here we go. I've got just a very basic hello world test. So we actually were developing this app and actually hoping to release it at ShmooCon, but we had some technical difficulties and we couldn't. I'm sorry, Heidi. That I feel bad because that's like two things we've tried to release at ShmooCon and said we would, and then we didn't. You must think we suck. So
Projecta used this Swift when she actually did her demo, and here we do an analysis, and it comes back with a number of things. So one, the application source is available. This is actually, they didn't properly publish their Swift, but one of them was possible social security. And we see right here this app. I wish I could increase it. It says my social security number equals 254638111. So like, I guess it was Saturday night, I start getting these text messages from people at ShmooCon that says, Billy, is your social security number 254638111? I'm like, no, it's not. So it gives me some information about application paths. We see debugging paths here, documents where they're actually doing it. We see that they're using min stage size from a vulnerability point of view. Adobe recommends that you have, as a best practice, your flash stage being at least 215 pixels by 138. So that way, Flash can properly display security vulnerabilities or security notices. It goes ahead and if you do. Now here's the sexy thing I love. Let's go ahead back to this guy. Get file, export source code. OZ test. Okay. Export complete. Let's go up. This is why I have a lot of shit on my desktop. All right, here we go. Do OZ test. So we see that here's the app I had, and it's got, display.as, global.as, jump by. So we went at jumpby.events. So we went and decompiled all the code, spit it out there so you can play with it and have all sorts of fun. So expect to see this by the end of the month. It's a lot of fun. Believe me, I wish we could have given it to you earlier, but I'm sorry? Swift scan. We wanted to call it Flasher, but the HP folks would not let it. And you see there are still some bugs in it. That's probably an iDispose issue. All right, so anyway, because I know I'm standing between y'all and booze and dinner, or more like you're standing between me and more girly drinks. Takeaways from this. The client is becoming important again. Never, oh, fuck. Wait, no, I've got the green stuff. That's much better. All right, never in my life did I think I would say that client-side input validation provides security. Because so many people will have JavaScript that says, oh, wait, your last name is O'Reilly. First of all, I feel bad for all the people whose last name contains an apostrophe, because you must not be able to type your name into, anything on the internet. You probably keep getting all these ODBC SQL errors, and you're like, why? Which basically means you just found a website you can own. Oh, really? So when we Netflix. When we moved to HP, they have this directory works, which is kind of like a directory system. It says your name, what city you're in. I mean, when you're a company of 150,000 people, this is what you have to do. So it had something where, because with 150,000 people, you can have multiple people named like Bill Smith. So they allowed you to put in basically this qualifier that said which one you were. And it would appear in Outlook as parentheses whatever you type. So people would be like, we have one guy we work with named Ken, and so Ken has a big beard, and so he had Ken, parentheses, the one with the Chuck Norris beard, whatever. Well, so as fun, I went ahead and I put in like tick, script, blah, blah, I had a null character in there with trying to do a cat on Etsy password. And I just wanted to see how many systems inside of HP actually access this. And so it basically got to the point I could not use HP's internal network. I would try to access, as a manager, I would try to access like my direct reports, and I'd keep getting all these errors about, like, I don't know who you are, ODBC error, here's a stack trace.
Automatic pwn.
Yeah, automatic pwn. So the client is important again, right? I mean, we're no longer in the Web 1.0 world where everything was on the client and the browser's a dumb terminal. The Web 2.0 world, where we had richer stuff running on the client, but still a lot on the server, we've kind of, I don't want to say Web 3.0 because that'd be a buzzword and y'all should hit me in the head with rebar if I say it, but we've moved to this occasionally connected, it's all in the cloud. Like the cloud is the new buzzword. So, I mean, the client is important. Regardless of where your app is running, you need to be doing input validation. Use parameterized queries for your SQL statements. Don't be like Microsoft. Really beware who you're getting in bed with, right? And this comes down to like Facebook. and things like that. All those applications are getting served by the same domain. So when you add that little, let me throw a snowball at somebody, that snowball application can access all the data that your little Gmail widget that lets you check your Gmail through Facebook has. So be very careful about that, especially cross-port and cross-path attacks. And as I've kind of shown, you would be amazed what you can find in client-side code. The main thing I've been using that Swift scan for is, like, I'm able to beat all of the Flash games on Adult Swim. Like, Amateur Surgeon is my bitch. Like, all of those things, I figured out how to, like, oh, all I have to do is hold down this hotkey and it takes me to the next level. Awesome. That's kind of the fun side. Then you can actually, because other people are doing, like, PeopleSoft, Oracle, SAP. What do you think they're writing their front ends in? It's not HTML. They're starting to write stuff in Flash. And so it's ridiculous what you can find on the client. Yeah, really that's all I've got. I thought I would close with, when we were Spy and moved to HP, we gave out a bunch of bumper stickers and asked people to put them up in interesting places and send us pictures. And one of the best pictures I got was that. So I thought I'd say, does anybody have any questions? Stop looking at the photo and ask me questions. All right, I'm sorry. Do you have a legitimate question?
No. Who is that?
I don't know. I think it was one of Caleb's groupies. That's pretty much. It wasn't a booth babe. Those are mainly at RSA, not so much Black Hat. But that's pretty much all I've got.
So could you encrypt their database and hold it for hostage?
Sure, cryptovirology. So that's an interesting thing we've seen where worms go around and encrypt stuff and then say, pay me and I'll give you the key. But why even give them the key? You already got their money.
So assuming
that as a protection mechanism, encrypt it and allow
I'm really glad you brought this up.
and
So,
only allow encrypted data in.
Anybody here ever heard of Dojo? If you do web development, Dojo is a JavaScript library that lets you do crazy shit. So they actually wrap a lot of these offline applications and let you encrypt stuff before it goes into the database. They're using AES for their encryption. The problem is that encryption is only as strong as the key. And so Dojo says, give me a key. And if your key is less than, like, say, 32 characters to generate the key for AES, they just pad the rest of it with 0 bytes. So what they're encrypting, it's not, their choices that they're doing are very poor. At the very best, what they should be doing is say, if I enter in a password of ABC, you shouldn't do ABC, the rest zeros, use that as the key and encrypt it. What they really should do is take ABC, append it to itself a lot. That's not the best, but it's at least, it adds more entropy to the system. Another problem I see with encryption in databases is what people will do, as anybody who's dealt with encryption knows, if you're decrypting something and you give it the wrong key, it'll gladly give you garbage data because it decrypted it incorrectly because you didn't have the right key. So what I see developers doing are saying, I'll have a record at the very first record in the database that is called, this is a test. And then when they decrypt it using my key, I'll check to see if the value is, this is a test. Well, the problem is you now have what's known as a plain text attack, a known plain text attack. So I now have, if I ever get your database, I have an encrypted value, but I know what it's supposed to be, which gives me a kind of finger hold into how I should attack it to decrypt it to actually get it. And so at the end of the day, a lot of these developers who don't know security break stuff. I'll give you another great example. There's a site called PageFlakes. Everyone here use iGoogle, where you can customize your Google interface, and have calendars. There's other sites that do this. That basically lets you have other widgets. Facebook's let you do this. What PageFlakes does is that sometimes you might want to send encrypted data back to the server. Instead of using SSL, they implemented RSA in JavaScript. So they went ahead and said, okay, you want to send something to the server, we'll actually have a public and private key. They encrypt and send it back to the server. This is like going from a stone wheel to a stone pentagon. It's stupid, not as good, and you're going to hurt somebody. The browser already has optimized routines to do SSL encryption and public and private key encryption. Why the hell are you doing that in JavaScript? And don't get me wrong, I use JavaScript in ways it was never intended. But even I'm not stupid enough to try to do cryptography in JavaScript. So the problem is developers, they think they know what they should do to solve these problems, like you said, and they end up shooting themselves in the foot by having known plain text attacks or poor keys or implementing public-private key encryption in ways that it shouldn't be incremented.
So assuming don't trust the client is an acceptable answer, what is the best solution for these companies that are Web 3.0?
I don't know. That's the sad thing about web security, right? Is at the end of the day, someone's like, so how do you protect your grandma? And I'm like, I really don't. Like, there is no happy ending to this. There's no buy my $50,000, 1U device and stick it in your data center and everything's cool.
That's what we want to hear.
Buy lots of
I wish you could, but there's no real happy ending. The thing is that you have to be smarter. And here's the thing that scares me about app security and what Rob was talking about moving to the 7th layer, is that how many years did it take of the IT profession getting the shit kicked out of it? To understand firewalls and network partitioning and VLANs and not running freaking telnet on a publicly facing box, right? No, seriously, you laugh, but I mean, it took 15, 20 years. Now, how many more? There are orders of magnitude more developers than there are IT professionals. So how long is it going to take before, the guy who just discovered PHP is actually going to learn to do it securely? And even if he figures it out, how many hundreds more are there each day? That's the problem.
Does HTML5 specify SQLite or just a SQL server and everybody just happens to implement it?
It specifies a SQL server, but everyone just uses SQLite.
Can you use something different?
Could I configure my browser to use like a local version of Oracle or something?
Shut up. I'm sorry, but the candles are burning.
I'm done. Thank you. The candles are burning or something. Thank you.
Only 40 minutes over this time.
It was only 30 minutes over.
Thank you, Billy. You're a scholar and a gentleman. I take back the things